Guys, thank you so much for watching the podcast. YouTube is 70% of my income. Spotify is 25 and Rumble is 5. Over the past 6 months, it has shifted to now where those three combined were 100%. They are now only about 60% combined because so many of you guys have joined the Patreon, the locals, the Cash App, the PayPal, the Buy Me a Coffee, Sport Drink, Heaven's Harvest, all this stuff. Um, a lot of you guys send me messages and say I can only do $1 a month. Dude, that makes such a world of a difference. If you can do $1 a month, you are in my pirate army and you are helping this show go to the point where we want to be completely independent of those platforms so we can just be even crazier. So if you're throwing $5 a month to me, you may not think it's much, dude. You are absolutely like you're in my army, and I genuinely mean that from my heart. Thank you. Like that's what allows me to be, you know, vulgar and unproduced, and slandering people and calling for violence, and all sorts of things that I don't. To quote Tim Dillon, I don't think I'm like a priority on the FBI. But I bet I'm on a cork board somewhere in Jersey going, let's watch this guy. So if you can, please donate to those. If you can't do any of that, go to ARC. That's in the description. ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children, led by Basil Baz, a former CIA paramilitary, and a bunch of special forces guys, all retired. Started in 1993. They have saved one child a month, 12 months a year for 33 years in a row, 100% success rate. They always get the kids back to their parents. And I always emphasize this. This isn't some online course where you can learn about, they give that too. You can learn about human trafficking. These are guys that I've seen the pictures of them before they go on. I can't share them because of OPSEC, but it's like SEAL Team 6. They're decked. They are going in and physically rescuing kids. It's not, it's not this like we have flyers out. They go get the kid and bring the kid home. It's really the most pure thing I've ever interacted with in my life. Donations are tax deductible. The link is in the description. You go read all about it. You can see success stories. You can see my multitude of interviews with Baz. Um, if you can't donate to my show, if you've got $1 and you can only give to one thing, give it to ARC. I'm fine. I'm a 35. I'll figure the podcast out, or I won't. Whatever. This is I meant to make this like a 1 minute beginning, but I'm meandering. Uh, if you can only donate to one thing, donate to ARC because that is objectively good. And if you can donate to both, that's cool too. If you can only do one, donate to ARC. And yeah, it's like you're literally help save children. So that being said, oh, and I always forget, Atom. It's a cryptocurrency. That link is in the description. All you guys need to do for that is click on the Telegram link. They just want eyeballs in the Telegram link. I don't know why. I don't understand this. One of them's going to come on the show and explain it, but they're sponsoring the show and helping me with revenue. Go click on the Telegram link. That's all I need you guys to do. I don't know why. That's what I have to do. Thank you so much. I love you guys. And we are recording on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026 at 5:05 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Matt Dines and Mossad, four-star general, Tom Luongo Stein, Shmuley. And it's about time he come clean. It's about time he come
Yeah.
clean.
Shmuel.
He
They
came up
figured
to
me
my
out, Shmuel.
he came
Shmuel,
to
they
he came to my apartment, and he gave me a beeper, and he said, "Hey, I hope your podcast goes the way it should go." And I said, "Tom, this is very different." And he actually, when he takes his glasses off, his dreadlock or his sideburns fall, and
yeah.
so that is what's going on. And Tom is my handler, so take it away, Tom.
Shmuel, he's figured it out. Shmuel, what we gonna do? Shmuel. Like, I don't know. Like, fuck it. I just don't care anymore. For guys, folks, it's funny. We're at a moment in time, where everyone has just kind of lost their minds.
Everyone is
And
siloed into cul-de-sacs of their own
and
world.
and everybody's yes, and the silos are becoming more and more obvious on a daily basis, and they're algorithmically driven.
And deeper and
Um,
deeper. Yeah.
and deeper as we go along. And what I find really funny is that the only silos that I've noticed that are growing is this one. I'm watching I'm watching this whole thing happen, and it's clear that we've been siloed off. And then I look at some of the traffic on some of the channels that I frequent, and I'm like, oh wow, those numbers are good. My numbers are going up. I mean, just doing the collaborations between you, Tommy, and Crypto Rich on
Yeah,
the
linking has helped a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? My YouTube channel, which I put no effort into whatsoever, zero, like none.
Oh yeah, I know
The
you're
only
gonna
thing
tell
that
you.
goes,
I know you told me the numbers, and I get so angry because I
I
put
went,
so much effort in.
my YouTube channel is now over 30,000
Oh,
people.
fuck off.
Well, Tommy, you get suspended like once every 4 years, right?
That's
So
neither
you
here
just
nor
have to
there.
reset the counter.
That's neither here nor there.
Right. So I put zero time into this thing, and I've just noticed that. I mean, the last month, I mean, it's mostly, it's the work of y'all, Crypto Rich, Meet the Inaction Ladies, all of them. Like that whole thing is growing. So that ecosystem is growing in such a way that, it's clear that we've struck a nerve or struck a chord with certain people that we hadn't struck a chord with before. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh. And so it's good, and I'm watching, the only thing I put into the YouTube channel on it, is just we put the podcast out as a simulcast over there. No video, just a title card. And it's what people like. It's an interesting moment in time where we're all experiencing the same thing at the same time, which is there's a whole lot of money that was sustaining this whole space for the Panikins of Podcastistan, like the Tucker Carlsons and the Sean Ryans and whatnot.
Podcast to Nostra.
Podcastistan. I particularly, I think that's the best version of it. So Panikins of Podcastistan, which is, honestly, we should start a podcast that calls it that. Oh, by the way, a moment of silence for one of the godfathers of podcasting, John Dvorak, died last night.
No.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. No, Adam Curry just put it out. The No Agenda podcast. He and Adam Curry, they're the godfathers of podcasting. Yeah, John died last night for 74. I don't know why, what happened or anything, but that just went out, and I feel bad about that.
Give a little God bless.
And I feel bad for Adam actually, because John has been his partner in that gig for what, 18 years,
18
years, something like that. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I just find it really interesting that the more they try to hide. The point I was making before I digress into that, I'm sorry, is that it's clear that there was a lot of money that was flowing into this space, this kind of alternative podcast space, and it was being shared around it, in a particular way. But the more that we're watching the downstream effects of no more zero cost money, no more funding channels coming from the American taxpayer or going out there to pay for bogus advertising revenue and
USAID.
everything else. USAID and all that stuff.
All these big, I think it said Bad Bunny. He's down 70%, and it started going down the day they cut USAID. Yeah.
That's a good point. I saw somebody else. It was somebody else. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Actually, I saw another thing. A friend of I know. I'm sure you know him, Matt. Mark Moss just had to shut down his Bitcoin treasury company, and feel bad for Mark because I like Mark. Never been on a show a few times. Good guy, at least But hey, like. Things are tough everywhere when you're in the beginnings of a dollar liquidity crisis, which I guess is what Matt and I are going to probably talk about today, and go right over Tommy's head. But it's more than that. It's deeper than that. There's a lot of panic out there, and you can feel it in a lot of different places, and people just don't realize it. I was just looking at the traffic on the average Zero Hedge article the other day, and I was shocked at the numbers and how bad they were. Like, the lead article at Zero Hedge is getting 40,000 hits. It's been up in the gray zone for, 12 hours. And I'm like, really? I used to do 250,000 hits on Zero Hedge all the time.
I'm averaging like 10,000 views a episode for my little channel.
Which is good, right?
Yeah. No, I'm psyched about it. I mean, in comparison to a huge name like that, the fact that I'm even like, a quarter of that, that's stunning to me.
So when I again, 10,000 views on a podcast. Mine, the Gold Ghost and Guns podcast, and generally does on Spreaker, does about 11 to anywhere from 9 to 12,000 paid hits on a revenue sharing basis, on an advertising basis, per episode. That doesn't translate into very much. The CPM rates are shit, but they are what they are. But I've never used but the podcast was never about the advertising revenue. It was never there for that. And then we're doing 6 and 8, 10,000 on YouTube. So that's a fair, and that's with no external revenue
Well, I
from
have
sponsors or anything else. So
you don't have to answer. Why haven't you
sure.
monetized your YouTube yet?
Laziness.
Dude,
It's a good question that it's gonna that is actually is something that we have to discuss in the
well,
near future.
I was telling that to you when you were here and we were walking around, but like no, really, like I almost didn't do it last October when they were like, "Do you want to monetize?" And I was like, "I don't fucking care, dude. I make like $40 a month on Rumble.
Mhm,
YouTube's easily 70% of my income now,
mhm.
and I don't do anything different with the podcast. It's
Right,
still, you know, vulgar, horrible, unproduced, just
right,
degenerate. Really, just a roller coaster to the center circle of hell. But
right.
dude, if yours is double that, just monetize. You go in, just on the video, monetize. Not my
It's
business.
more
Sorry.
complicated. Unfortunately, not my only call. I have a we have a we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah, I got you. Sorry.
So no worries. Just it is what it is. And so that'll be a conversation. And it
Yeah.
has to be a conversation at some point. But it's at that point now where it's clear that with the larger point I was trying to make was that knowing that watching the effect on my YouTube channel, which all I do is what I just told you what we do, which is to collaborate with you and Rich and a few and maybe one or two others. Like that's the kind of growth that there is. That's telling you that there's still an audience to be tapped in a way that hasn't been tapped previously. So,
And the little kind of wisdom I have from podcasting, I can tell you, I don't think it's all the way, but the finger that was on the scale in 2020
mhm,
and 2021, before they just stopped with the scale and just said fuck off and threw me off,
mhm.
that I wouldn't say that finger's gone, but it is a lot.
Well, I
Is a
do.
lot. It's still suppressed in ways, and everybody gets suppressed. I get it, but it flies a lot faster now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the hand, I think the hand's probably still on the scale. I'm not naive enough to say no, but that's an interesting thing to me that's
It is.
happened. I think you and I talked about that. Rumble is a way to suck every right winger in, and now you have them on by the ball. I don't want to derail the conversation, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
I've
I
noticed
mean,
that.
but this is part of where we are today, and especially within the psyop. And Matt, I'll happily bring you into the conversation in just a second, my friend.
I know he's
Which
smiling.
is that we're less than 4 months out from the midterm. So this effect that we're feeling right now is going to be as hard as we're going to see it going forward. I think they're trying to really hive everybody off as much as possible right now. And then, at some point, I think after the midterms, we're going to find out, what the lay of the land is. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I think that yeah, the compartmentalization, but then
Hmm.
also I guess the gatekeeping. So coming
Hmm.
from the Bitcoin space, which I've
Right.
always got at least one foot in, a lot
Right.
of friends there. There was a big algorithm change in the last couple of weeks where suddenly your um, kind of just your Bitcoin focused accounts,
Hmm.
the Marty Bents, like a
Hmm.
few other ones. It's like
Right.
just a little algorithm update. It's like, oh, now we have reach again. So they can change this, they can dial it up, dial it down, and it is tied in. Like if you think about that effect into capital markets, like it's not going to change treasury curve yields or anything like that. But
No.
if you need to create a liquidity pump in Bitcoin, boom, just amplify that,
That's a
dial it
really,
up.
yeah, that's a really good point because we're seeing
Pro
that, especially with Bitcoin starting to try and break out above 65,000.
Yeah,
So,
so it probably can't, like, it won't impact gold markets. Like, it's no, that's central bank land. But you can affect AI stocks. You could, I
mhm.
mean, equity market pump, get retail thrown in their bid. Um, so when I see that, it's clever man behind the curtain type of gimmicks.
Yeah. I think that's real, especially again, it all depends on, where we are we're at that point in the cycle, the Bitcoin cycle, certainly. We're getting closer and closer, apparently, to clarity actually getting passed, the Clarity Act actually getting passed, just keeping this on the Bitcoin, side of the capital markets thing, because it's really obvious that we're starting to watch the grind higher out of the low 60s in Bitcoin. And that matters because we're starting to ask for, okay, can we pump the collateral assets that have been beaten into the dirt, like gold down to $4,000, silver down to 55, Bitcoin down to 58,000. These are horrific numbers for two of those three asset classes. I would consider $4,000 gold to be horrific. But silver certainly at 55 to 60 after a move above 100. That's pretty horrific.
119, I think. Yeah.
And 119 as high as 130. I think even as high as 131, depending on which quote and blah blah blah. There's always a variety of this is a smattering of pricing because it's not a unified market, right? And neither gold nor silver nor Bitcoin are unified markets. Actually, oil isn't either. That's what's so sad about the Brent Brent crude futures contract, is that it's an attempt to create a unified pricing model for a very fractured market. And it's just nonsense, but it's what people, when they see it, they have a place that they can go to. And, so.
You said that on the very first episode you and I ever did. I don't know why I remember that, Brent crude. That was 2021. So 5 years later. Yeah.
Yeah. We're still talking about Brent crude as like the biggest, the biggest scam in market. It's still the biggest scam in capital markets.
Yeah.
Like it's bigger than Nvidia. It's bigger than the NASDAQ 100. It's bigger than all of them because it's the foundational layer on which everything else is built, which is this idea that oil prices are this. No, oil prices are not that. Oil prices are many things. And Brent crude trading at $94 today, knowing full well that the Saudis are still selling it in the 70s because they do their tender once a month. They set their tender prices once a month. Folks, oh, by the way, we forget about these things. So,
Matt, jump in
this
here.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of just just pull the maneuver as you need it.
Right.
And you think about these giant asset classes as you can't influence the chart. Well, you see what we get this week when we need to create the just like the squeeze, right? What do you do? It's like, well, tap in the Houthis. They're going to shut down Bab el-Mandab, and we're squeezing again. We're squeezing again.
Yeah. And it doesn't. And the thing is that, it's funny. Like this has been going on for months now, and if people can't see that this is part of the operation, like there are two sides to this war. There's the Iranian propaganda side. There's the Trumpian propaganda side. There's the British propaganda side that's playing both sides against the middle, and everybody's playing a game here. But it turns into kinetic action on the ground to drive headlines, to drive prices, to then, let people continue to write headlines and create a political reality that may or may not be true.
What was it that you tweeted about Besson? I never use Twitter anymore because it's bad for my mental health and I'm a demon when I'm on it. But I use it on my desktop to upload the podcast, and I saw a tweet from you saying people are still blackbilling. It was about Besson firing people who had somehow like legalized fraud.
Yeah, there's like all sorts of fraud that's being uncovered, right?
Yeah.
And every day they come out and there's like 4 or 5 headlines a day. Now,
yeah.
We've uncovered this fraud here for $100 million, and we'll probably save us $300 million here, $5 billion there, $6 billion there, $1 billion here. Pretty soon we're talking about real money.
Yeah, and you were like, well, everyone, shut the fuck up with it's over.
It's over. How about if we're running a similar budget deficit year over year? It's because interest rates are, we were thanks to Janet Yellen, we were borrowed short on the curve, where she issued almost nothing but 2-year notes. So we're stuck with having to roll that debt over on the 1, 2, 3-year cycle, and therefore the borrowing costs continue to go up. But hey, like the operational efficiency of the federal government is actually improving, so that once you get interest rates down and can monetize and can roll the debt over at lower, not monetize, but roll the debt over at lower rates, all of a sudden you're going to fix you'll fix the long-term budgeting problem. So how about we fix the Medicare fraud? How about we fix the Social Security fraud? You get all that stuff out of the system, and then we have a cleaner cash flow statement, and all we have to do is fix the amortization table of the debt. That's
You-
what's happening here. Go ahead
Did you
now.
see that story? This is in the last 24 hours, I think,
Mm,
but Treasury and was it Department of Health and Human Services,
mm,
RFK's department. They're
right.
withholding over $1 billion in
Yeah.
Medicaid funds from
Mm,
California and Minnesota. So like
yeah.
that's
Just two states.
yeah.
Just two states. There's Pennsylvania, there's New York, there's New Jersey, there's Rhode Island, there's Connecticut, there's Massachusetts. I can go on. There's Illinois. These are all the hotbeds. Arizona. These are the hotbeds of all of this type of fraud.
I think there
And
was
if you
one
can
in
find a
Maine. I think there's one in
yeah,
Maine. 2,000 dead people receiving Medicare.
exactly. How about we get not only should we get the dead people off their voter rolls, but we should get them off the Social Security rolls. Should get them off the Medicaid rolls. Should get them off the Medicare rolls. Blah 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 blah. There's all this Medicare fraud and the billing and everything else. All of this stuff can be cleaned up,
Yeah.
and it's not this, and you're moving at the speed of government, right? This is where all of our libertarian instincts should, come to the fore, and we have to realize, oh yeah, we're moving at the speed of government. So yeah, it's taking a little longer than we would like it to, but it's happening,
But it's
and that's part
but it's
of
happening. It's not.
right,
It's not. Sorry, it's not 5 years ago when they're fucking
right,
shutting down thing after thing, and they floated the disinformation governance board, and they're doing all this shit, and they're going
right,
backdoor on Instagram and Facebook, and they're shutting
right,
things down. No, it's not perfect, but
right.
like prayed for days like this, and that's why I'm with
Mhm.
Tom when you're always like, I have to be optimistic because it's working. It's
It is.
working at the speed of government. Shut the fuck up. Sorry.
No, you're right, Tommy. All I would say is like, yeah, is it happening fast enough to save the country? I don't know, and I would rather have that conversation than this is what I was talking with Sean Newman about yesterday. I'd rather have that conversation than the conversation of whether or not Trump has sold us out to these fucking Jews or not. Like, really, dude? It's like, is that your that's and the sad part about it is that going back to the original conversation part of the conversation, which is there are people out there who took the black pill because that was where the easy money was.
Mm.
That's where the easy podcast money was.
Oh,
And so you can just it's a circle jerk. And so at the top level, you had Candace interviewing Tucker, interviewing Sean Ryan, interviewing this one, and they just do that circle up there. And then the second tier and the third tier are doing the same damn thing.
it's also
And then
easy.
now they're just
It's
running
also
concentric circles.
it's also for weak people because there is you can say there's not on the surface rationally. There is satisfaction in getting that test and seeing an F. And you go,
Yeah.
okay, I have to retake the course. Or where you go, I am dropping out of the fraternity pledgeship. It's too fucked up. I'm not doing there's because there is it's easiness and going there's finality. And the people that are like, hey, the country's over, it's falling apart. They're allowed to go. They're allowed to give themselves permission to go, and I don't have to help. That's what it
Right.
is at its core.
And it's what I used to call chuckling and collapsitarian.
Chuckling and collapsitarian.
Yeah.
Was that one
It
word?
used to, yeah, collapsitarian being like as opposed to libertarian, chuckling and collapsitarian. It used to be a guy. There used to be a meme that ran around in circles. It's a picture of like Michael Rooker drinking in his car. It was in a movie. In his car, the zombies are trying to get into his car, and he's like pulling out a fifth of Jack Daniels and chuckling and collapsitarian. I'm like, it still works. It's still obviously what a lot of people are doing. Like you can chuckle collapsitarian all you want, folks, but that doesn't mean it's true, but it absolves them of the responsibility of having to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's the big one. And like, okay, you want to live in that world? That's fine. Go over there. Please stop podcasting about it. We have real work to do. The rest of us would like to have a civilization. Fuck off.
The actual, path that, that trail down the woods
Mhm.
goes to
Mhm.
is actually, it sounds, I guess it gets views, whatever. People like to mentally
Masturbate.
yeah, to the thought of that idea, and it's not, but they don't realize. Like, go look at the October Revolution, in Moscow.
Right.
Look at Berlin, 1919, like fighting off the equivalent, the Bolshevik
Right.
insurrection, all of that. It's not a great place to be in when you got to find that faction of your society to like
Right.
retake City Hall. It's
Right.
it's not a fun place to be in.
Right.
So you can, yeah, you can make a lot of money, I guess, in today's or the last, 10 years, 20 years as social media, podcasting, YouTube bit channels, all of that sprung up. But yeah, we're at the point now where it's time to actually bring in people who
You
have
want
have
to
a path forward.
right. You have to. You want yeah, having a path forward, and and there's another side of that, which is that not only do you have to have a path forward, and that's fine if you don't want to have one, but that also means having a little self control and realizing that if you're not in the position to affect the change, then you complaining that other people aren't moving at the speed that which you think they should be moving, you have to realize at a certain point, you're part of the problem because they're going to use you as a means by which to demoralize other people. So you can be realistic and you can be fair, but you don't have to be histrionic. And there are certain it's and this is part of the process of this let's hive everybody off into smaller and smaller groups because the groups that are well intentioned but black pill are missing the point that they're carrying water for the demoralization campaign that they're railing against
It's an
and that
old,
they see
it's
and
a,
it becomes
it's
a
an,
self-fulfilling
it's an
prophecy.
old top, it's an old tactic. It's atomization.
Right.
You're alone.
It's divide. It's divide and
Divide and
rule.
conquer. Yeah.
Divide and roll. Every day I wake up and I look in my Twitter notifications and I see yet more. Every day I wake up, I read my Twitter notifications and I see, I see enough people still doing the blackpilling thing. Now I've blocked a lot of them because most of them are bots. And I've noticed that the bot activity is both it's becoming it's actually interesting what's been happening. I've now been watching certain people who I've blocked who are not bots, who are then offended that I blocked them, then try and find me in other areas to yell at me. So they can't yell at me on Twitter. So then they go to my blog and they yell at me on my blog and I auto junk their comments and I read their comments and I junk them and I don't publish them, or I see them on YouTube comments or I see them on Substack or this or that. Like, really? You have nothing better to do with your time
I was
than
about
run
to say,
around.
where do you get that time?
Right. I mean, you can't, I mean, I get that, you're angry that, and maybe you're offended by the idea that somebody out there actually wants to save the world or wants to save society in his own little way. I get that that may offend you, but that, like, dude, you only get one life. Like, there's this beautiful world out here. Maybe you should go engage with it. Like, this is part of the reason why I sit out here and sweat in the summer heat here in Tennessee to do this out here as opposed to doing it inside where it's nice and cool. And it's not just so I can smoke a cigar. It's to remind everybody that there's a big world out there in meat space, not flatland. That's real. So, my subtle wave. That's not a green screen, by the way. Those are actual trees. Watch it carefully and you'll see them like moving in the wind. It's real.
The
It's not a
the
picture.
the bit rate has to update, refresh.
Yeah, seriously. Like, it's just funny. I watch this stuff and I'm like, really? How about we go forward with something, I mean, I'm not saying be a relentless optimist, it's all working and trust the plan. No, it's like this, there's places to comment and there's places to really criticize. But the general idea is like, Trump is doing the best he can with what he has to work with, which isn't much. I mean, Mitch McConnell's dead for Christ's sake, and we're still arguing about whether or not he's gonna show up dead before August 3rd. And we all know why it's August 3rd, because they don't want to hold a special election and replace his seat. Like, that's why. That's what they're doing. And we know this. So, and you're gonna move you're expecting to move mountains and you can't even get a guy to like turn on the earth mover. Really? Okay.
So to take this into financial markets,
Sure, sure, sure.
rates are up. Just following the U.S. yield curve, 2 years
Sure.
up, 8 days in a
Mhm.
row.
Mhm.
As I'm sitting at my screen watching secondary market liquidity, it's just even corporate bonds, like really the tip of the spear is Oracle, right? Like yields just
Right.
keep going up, and it
We
seems
were
to
talking about this last
me
week, yeah.
um, with all right, the ECB, after everything that happened in first half, right? They come out with their, letters, their forecasts, all that, and they say, yeah, bond repricing's coming, it's inevitable. Um, And you just look at everybody's going to talk about the 10-year, the 30-year, right, being above
Mhm.
five. But you look at the chart, it's the rest of the sovereign debt that is
Complex
actually
looks, yeah, looks.
right in the like prime to break out, even ahead
Hmm.
of the U.S. yield curve. Now the U.S. yield curve, it's like a team of mountain climbers, right? You got four people attached to the rope. If one climber falls into the crevasse, like everybody's, either
Right,
dig in or everybody's going in.
right.
Um, but it feels like that's the thing in front of us.
Hmm. I agree, Matt. Oh man, I did the market report this morning, and you pop up, every day I get up and I'm like, okay, let's go look at the SOFR futures curve. Let's go look at the yield curve. Let's go look at all the yield spreads that I look at. I know there are other yield spreads I could be looking at that I'm not, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is bad. This is a liquidity crisis, and is it downstream of Trump, bombing Iran? Oh, absolutely, it is. But the question is, in what way is it downstream of Trump bombing Iran? That's the question. It's not as simple as he bombed, yields are up, Trump's evil. It's far more than that. It's
No.
far more complex than that. And anybody trying to and I get commentary from people all the time, and they want something from me I'm not going to give them, which is that they want me to make it simple for them, and it's not simple. It's a complicated process. There are a lot of players at the table. Everybody's trying to, hold on. To use your metaphor, they're trying to either dig in before they fall, and the ECB is doing it, the BOE is doing it, the BOJ is doing it, the Bank of France is doing it. I mean, look, we were talking about this thing the other day, and I want you to comment on this. I finally got a chance to read the article that you posted on Slack about the high interest rate, the Indian thing with
Gift
the
City?
RBI. Yeah, that thing. It
Oh,
was insane. I read that article. I had to read it twice because it was so badly written on Bloomberg. It was awfully written. And it's like it just comes down to like they're making shit tons of credit in India. Bank deposits can't keep up, and now they're like trying to suck all the diaspora money back into India so they can rug pull them all and take the money. That's what it looks like to me. But I want you to talk about this in more
all right.
detail. This is
All right.
hilarious.
All right. So, Tommy, general audience, you kind of know this. We talked about the offshore dollar system. You got all these money center hubs, right? I mean, London being the hornet's nest or the mothership, but like Hong Kong, Dubai, Singapore, Caymans, what have you. All right. Bloomberg article comes out, and this has been in the works for I don't know how long it's been building up. It's been at least this year, but I have Indian friends who are part of the diaspora, and like I sent them this article. They're like, "Oh no, this is on our radar." Yeah, but what's happening? You've got this city in India, it's Gujarat, which is I understand it is the hometown of Prime Minister Modi, right? So he's building up this the initiative. It's like this special economic zone. They forked it off, and what they're trying to do is turn it into another money center hub. And as I read it, my first read of this is like, this sounds like City of London. I think this might actually be American sovereigntist engaged, as crazy as that sounds. I'm still trying to piece through the factors of this story, but so think about this. First, you've got the Indian diaspora community. I don't know how many Indian expats there are working outside of India and the rest of the world, but it's mainly U.S., Canada, UK, and then the Gulf Coast countries. But over the course of the last, like, let's say 6 to 12 months, this they call it Gift City Initiative. Terrible. I mean, it's a ridiculous name. Gujarat, I want to say International Finance and Technology is how they get the GIFT acronym. But what they're trying to do is that they need dollars, right? Which is call it hard currency. We all know like the dollar, we're talking about the offshore dollar specifically. It's not a hard currency, and in reality, but compared to the rest of the other foreign exchange, like yeah, dollars is what everybody wants. All right, so they need dollars to defend the Indian rupee. If you look at the chart of the Indian rupee for like the last 30 years, it just like people talk about the debasement of the dollar, the loss of purchasing power. It's like, well, dial that up to 11, and that's some of these, like the Indian rupee is one of these currencies that just there's no functional system behind it. All right,
Mhm.
so this Gift City initiative, they're building up. They need a bunch of dollars pulled into this city, and what they're doing is they're going out to all the customers of like the expat customers of banks like HSBC, Standard Chartered, Citigroup is in there. Like Citigroup dates back to it's the Rockefeller Bank. It's a Davos globalist bank type of system, type of business franchise. One other one they mentioned, it's slipping my mind, Davos mug. But it was basically like four banks that this Bloomberg article went through, and like Indian banks are part of this as well. But they're offering like way above market interest rates to attract dollar deposits in from the diaspora,
Mhm.
and it's like 7% is what they're quoted. That builds up a bunch of dollar inflows to this gift city, but that's just creating a liability, right? If you're paying 7% and you're like, where do I go reinvest these dollars I'm holding as reserves? And they ultimately make their way back to the Indian central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, um, which is committed to running the foreign exchange hedging, the swaps, all of that to reduce or just smush out the volatility in this process, which, over the long run, it won't be. This is gonna this is gonna rear its head, 5, 10 years down the road. But you can't just reinvest those dollars that you're pulling in at like a 7% funding cost, buy US Treasuries right now at, you see yields going up, but it's still like the bonds you would want to match the kind of the demand deposits, right? The short term redeemability of your liability. You want to keep that duration low. So like front end of the yield curve, 3.75, that area,
4%.
4%. You're at a -3
Mhm.
like on your carry. You can't do that. So what they're doing is they're going to the same depositor base and they're saying, hey, you can take your deposit. I'll let you lever up. Some banks are at like 9x or some are like 19x. Um, and borrowing at like a small like spread to the 7, but because you're leveraging up to 19x, like you're just cranking up your levered returns. Now, how does this go bad? Well, eventually what's happening there, all right, as you crank up all that lending to match all those dollars, create all the loans on the asset side to match the amount of capital you've raised from demand deposits, those dollars are going to be transformed in the banking alchemy into infrastructure loans, other like just credit creation inside of Gift City. That's going to be a nexus between, the offshore dollar or stablecoin dollar, whatever, and into India. But all of that credit that's coming off of that buildup of dollars, like this is where Tom, like we talked about, is like, oh no, I've seen this story at this point in my life 10, 20, 30 times. And my Indian friends are as well. They're telling, each other, like, don't do this. But the young
Mhm.
ones who have never been burned, everybody learns once. That's all it takes. Like you only need to fool someone once. But it's just like, all right, we're seeing this again, but it's not right here. It's not the immediate thing. Now, what I think it is, Tom,
Mhm.
um,
Just before we go
yeah,
any
go ahead.
further, what we think is what's going on, just to make sure everybody understands, they're going to lever this stuff up, and then they're doing that to get people to go, hey, you can make 12, 13, 14% on this money. But here's the problem. The minute the loans that all this is levered against can't be serviced, and it doesn't take much of that, when you're levered up 19 times, it only takes a 5% loss to wipe you out,
Mhm.
wipe out your collateral. So this is either a way to get all these dollars into the system, into that area, into Gift City, to then suck the money out and leave everybody holding the bag, and or it's going to just die anyway when these malinvested dollars that are levered up 9 to 19 times, when those loans go bad. Now, I've seen this story before. I remember when I first started moving into the whole financial services thing, I was working with a guy in Vietnam. I remember when the Vietnamese banks, when the Vietnamese dong was getting crushed and the Vietnamese banks were desperate for dollars and they were offering, now here, at least there, they were offering, it's like 16 to 18% on Vietnamese dong deposits, meaning you put dollars into the bank, and because the State Bank of Vietnam was paying 16%, that's what they were, that's what the interest rates were in Vietnam at the time. You were getting 16% on your money paid in Vietnamese dong, right? But eventually, but again, it's only because they don't have enough capital to
Mhm.
cover their existing loan portfolios. They don't have enough. They don't have enough collateral. The dollars in this case are collateral. And Matt and I, we like to talk about gold, silver, Bitcoin as collateral, oil as collateral. These are hard forms of hard collateral that the entire system is built on. This is another layer of this where you're saying, well, these dollars are the collateral for this entire schema, and we're like taking those dollars. And not only are we taking the deposits, but they're taking the deposits and letting you borrow the dollars and then reinvest them right back into the whole thing at 9 to 19 times X. It's literally a Ponzi scheme.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. True. So yeah, the term, if you want to look this up, so there's going to be like 1% of the audience who's like, oh yeah, I know a lot about this.
Right.
99% will be like, what the heck's going on?
It's a Ponzi scheme.
We can
That's what I'm
string
trying.
this
I'm
thing
trying
together.
to,
Yeah.
right. I'm just trying to like TLDR for everybody.
Yeah.
They're building a Ponzi scheme in India. And I think it's just very funny that in this, it's another aspect of this. There's a dearth of dollars flowing through the offshore dollar system, and they're trying to figure out how to get real dollars out of places like America, Canada, the Gulf
Yep.
states, where this
So,
diaspora lives, and bring it back into India in order to keep that system from collapsing, and then figure out how to get it laundered back into HSBC, Citigroup, Standard Chartered, all these typical City of London style banks. Go ahead.
so this is where it gets interesting. Like you think about the Indian diaspora, they're actually, besides just what like tech worker or whatever, you could just think of them as a, middle to high end source of labor in the global
Mhm.
economy. It's a dollar liquidity source. You
Right.
could think about this community as that. Now, United States actually, from a tax perspective, it doesn't make sense, right? You got to pay federal, state income taxes on, these foreign holdings. So if you're paying seven, charge you 37% off the top. Well, if you're going to buy treasuries, interest rate, whatever, it's state tax exempt. Like it just doesn't make sense from the people I've talked to in the
Mhm.
U.S. To plow dollar capital into this gift city scheme. If you're a U.S. resident, green card holder, citizen, like whatever, just expat. But the group they're going after is actually the diaspora and the GCC, like which is huge, right? One of the large, I guess, locations where that hires and employs a lot of Indian workers. So if you think about this, like, all right, GCC is tied to the action in Iran. Like it's part of the puzzle. You think about, okay, what are we doing here? Like, just follow the dollars all over here, and then you
Right.
try to connect those dollar flows. It's like, okay, so we need those dollar flows from the GCC expat community flowing into Gift City. We're going to build up this dollar hub in Gujarat, which is going to create a new money center hub, or the goal is create a new money center within India. Um, and that would give India or the Indian economy um, its own kind of financial center, a nexus, similar to like Hong Kong and China, right? You
Mhm.
have an entry point where you can um, funnel the flows of capital in and out of that economy and how they interact with the rest of the world. This new dollar system, dollar stablecoin system that's emerging is kind of where I expect this to go. But the point here is to build this thing up so that India doesn't have to depend on someone else's franchise. So Singapore or Dubai or Hong Kong. Um, but yeah, my actual read was I was like, oh, this is London. It's like, oh wait, and then you see Trump's interactions with Modi when they get together doesn't seem antagonistic.
It's not.
Yeah, and you also see it with I mean, just the local developer class in India. I want to say during the Biden administration, you saw like the Adani family, the patriarch, whatever.
Mhm.
Like he was sanctioned, but maybe not sanctioned, but like what he was just person non grata with the Biden administration. And then you saw, I want to say recently, like the 47th administration, they took those things away. So
Mhm.
anyway, this point here, yeah, you're seeing a lot of things going on in dollar credit, and you piece this together. This is like right across the delta from Pakistan. Like it's on the western side of India. It's right in the region, like everything going on with Iran, Middle East, Strait of Hormuz. So just something to watch, put on your radar. But yeah, they're trying to build up dollar liquidity in an environment where dollars are tight.
Yeah, and there's a lot of political shit happening in India. I think there was the potential. I was reading some of the stuff that was posted on Slack and the India channel about the potential for like Modi to get assassinated. There were a couple of there were a couple of assassination plots against Modi that were thwarted. There's a bunch of stuff happening in India right now, and so yeah, it's like it was getting a little hot and heavy in our Slack server. We had to like hive some of this stuff off into a different in a different locale so we could like make sense of it all because we couldn't have it all in like one channel. We had to create an entire separate channel for this. Which turned out in the end actually turned out to be worth doing. It was there was a couple of users who were a little over enthusiastic about this, but yeah, okay, fair. I get it. That's why we created a separate channel for this so that people can like try and parse the tea leaves. The India story here is not a small one because I think it's clear that London has been trying to shore up its franchise with India, and it's become a battleground geopolitically. The TLDR now for the offshore dollar geeks in the audience, and I'm sure that's most of you. Though when Matt and I get together, I'm sure that percentage will be higher than normal. The TLDR here is that India has become a geopolitical battleground in the fight for where the global financial system is going to move. Basically whose currency regime is going to reign supreme after this is all over. And I know we've got Tommy zoning out on us now. So
The sun's right on me, and I'm on my sixth show. So
No.
I just took some caffeine. It'll kick in a minute.
No, I'm just picking on you, Tommy. I get it. I know, dude. I know how hard you work, and I know this is late in the day for you. So
No, but this is why it's fun, is because we can come on here and talk about Montague Norman and
yeah, and Benjamin Strong, who was the bitch and who was the butch, right?
Yeah, just a couple guys hanging out, cornholing each other. Next thing you know, we land on the moon. I mean, if it led to the Roaring '20s and Great Depression, and then the war, and then the Nazis, to an extent, we should be celebrating them for getting us to the moon.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It all depends on your view of history. I just find it really funny. Like I think that one of the interesting parts about this, and I think we pull it back from this, to do a bit more of a strategic overlay here. What's happening, I think, in the bond markets right now, and this was something I said this morning for the patrons, which is that we have a Federal Reserve meeting next week, and Kevin Warsh, there's somebody out there who desperately wants the United States to cry uncle over the inflation from higher oil prices, from this, from that, all this stuff coming into the midterms. You almost want somebody is screaming for the United States to cry uncle and raise rates. That's what the SOFR futures curve is beginning to tell us. I think that's what's going on in the yield curve, because it's showing up in other credit spreads. It's showing up in the U.S. UK spread. It's showing up in the U.S. German spreads. It's showing up and that's my read on that whole complex. Is Europe is losing control of their yield curve. They're trying desperately to their various yield curves. They're trying desperately to hold those spreads down, and they want they've already raised, as to Matt, Matt said previously when he and I chatted either here on this podcast or on my podcast last week, Lagarde raising, a couple of meetings ago was the first cry from her of, oh Christ, I'm in trouble, right? But I think they all want the United States to join them in the suck, because at that point, then they can continue to play this game. Because here's the gig. When you really stop to think about it, if they're worried that Warsh is going to give them dollar swap lines in a sovereign debt crisis or in a real dollar liquidity crisis, which the ECB and the Bank of England, and they've all been screaming about, oh my God, what will happen if the Fed doesn't provide us dollar swap lines? Or if they do provide us dollar swap lines, what's the price going to be, right? Then they have to get their dollars from somewhere. And I think this ties into clarity, actually, Matt, in this respect, that clarity is supposed to create demand certainly at the short end of the yield curve to build out the stable coin infrastructure, right? You issue stable coins backed by 30, 60, 90-day paper, T-bills. But if we're producing new dollars backed by our short-term paper, they have to get those dollars some other way. And the only way they can get dollars is to sell their reserves if we don't give them dollar swap lines, or they have better trade with us. And the Europeans clearly, and the Canadians, don't want to invest in America. Like, even though I think I saw from Peter St. Onge this morning, like 3 out of every 4 Canadian companies is now moving their production to the United States, the big ones, because they don't want to deal with the tariffs. Like, he's pointed this out. Brent Johnson's been all over the story. Like this, these are the people that are serious commentators on this stuff. Like, they're seeing what the dynamic at play, which is that Trump is pulling the capital into the United States, and our Congress is stopping the infrastructure clarity that would then allow us to issue the local credit backed by short-term treasuries that would allow this to happen. So,
Can you define clarity?
the Clarity Act, the Stablecoin Act, the
Well,
final
no.
set of the digital asset rules. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
stablecoin, we already have the legal infrastructure for that. That's genius. Now you need the regulatory kind of rules, booklets, all of that done, finalized. And like that process, just like the first deadline was July 18th. So we're through that. Everything's supposed to be live for go launch on January 18th, which is, I don't know the exact day the next Congress will be sworn in, but it'll basically be by the time the next Congress is sworn in, it's like, all right, we're ready to go.
When I have you
Wrap
guys
this
on,
up.
you guys are teaching like grad level like econometrics, and I'm like in first grade, and my grandma's telling me the importance of like a penny earned is a penny saved. So just talk to me like I'm a retard.
Okay.
Right. Well, that's what we're getting at here, is that we need both the Genius Act and the Clarity Act in force in order to have rules for digital assets, who can issue them, what the rules are for, how they're accounted for on corporate balance sheets and everything. All that we have to have that infrastructure. If we don't have that infrastructure, if we don't have legal certainty, people can't invest in that. The legal uncertainty of digital assets has been the thing that has kept things like Bitcoin and other things from officially becoming part of the banking industry in the United States. And if we don't do it, then other people will do it, and they have an advantage. So they're desperate in a symbolic logic kind of way. They don't want us to have this, or in a strategic way, they don't want us to have this asset, a legal framework with which to deal with digital assets. Because if they do that, if they leave that uncertainty, then it retards investment into the United States from that metric or from that avenue. Okay, that's the takeaway for the layman.
I'll put it in my TLDR. Yeah,
Sure.
there's a bulleted list of things that must be done.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I don't know, call it 6, could be 12, could be never done. Like if you're a husband, your wife's to-do list is probably infinite, and you're sitting
Right.
around, relaxing,
Constantly.
not
Right.
getting that list done. Things that you'll never get done in your lifetime. Anyway, point is,
Right.
there's a list. This, call it a bear market, right? The Bitcoin bear market, the gold sell off, the liquidity taking, the tight dollar. My framework, this checklist has to be, all those items scratched off before we can move on to the next phase. Like things have to be ready. The foundation has to be laid before you build, the scaffolding to do construction,
Right. And
2027,
it's and
2028, whatever it is.
and that's what we're talking about. Now we're talking about financial infrastructure has to be built. It has to be built on a legal foundation that where the companies know what their rules are. They know what the tax laws are going to look like. They know how they're supposed to account for them and all of this. So this all has to be done in order for them to use these stable coins as a means by which to then do lending and all the other things and issue credit and account for it. And it all has to be done. And if it's not done, then it doesn't get done. And now we're stuck in the old system. It's similar to my arguments about why London is fighting in many ways, is fighting so hard for Fannie and Freddie to be left in conservatorship and not be brought back into the market because they don't want the ability of the United States to control the way the rates at which we can issue 30-year fixed rate mortgages. They want control over the price of those 30-year mortgages. And they do that by having Fannie and Freddie be off the market where they can't make a market, really an efficient market in mortgage-backed securities to affect lending rates in the United States. Therefore, though that drag is where their leverage is. They remember markets are made at the margin, folks, not in the aggregate. You can talk about a $2 trillion mortgage market, yeah, but new mortgages are made at the margin. And if you can control the rate at which the new mortgages are made at the margin, you control the rate at which money flows through that market. Okay, it's like you're controlling it's like a hose with the little twisty thing on the end to decide how much water is going to come out. So there's pressure in the hose. There's a lot of there's water that wants to come out, but if you've got the thing closed, no water is going to flow. Open it up a little bit, and they control the valve.
So the TLD, to put this one in TLDR, imagine you're a 31-year-old man, you can't get a house. All these things you want are just, you can't access them through the financial system because it can't deliver them right now.
Right.
At some point, in your life, every male's, not every, I shouldn't say that, but most is like, I want a house. Why? Well, obviously a roof over my head, but for me, I was like, I want my own garage. Damn it. Like,
right. And I want my kid.
Tool
I want my
rack.
kids over there, and I want my tools over there. Like
it's very caveman-esque. I'm like, I want vertical walls. I want geometry that I can stay in, and it's not raining.
Right.
Simple eight.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Right.
Yeah, but that's where we are right now. We're stuck, and we've been in this mud patch, since 2008, really. Probably a little bit before when we tried. It was a honeypot, the whole subprime phenomenon. Get
Absolutely.
people in with, a 530 credit score into a house they can't afford.
Right.
No income, no jobs, no assets. Like that was all fool's gold to get us into this predicament. But that's the task in front of us, I think. And you look at so much of the I guess the anger, resentment, the frustration from I think the younger crowd, and this is where obviously the product that's being sold to them is democratic socialism.
Right. Right.
The task is like where the rubber meets the road is like get the financial system to be able to deliver these things. Which actually just means a functional, coherent financial system at the end of the day.
Yeah, would not be nice.
And that's where it's pretty clear to see, all right, just look at your legislators, governors, whatever, politicians from the perspective of who is helping the country move towards that, like a functional financial system, and who just seems to keep mucking up the gears at every possible opportunity. And that's a good a very simple litmus test to identify who's working for who. Yeah.
Right. It's a good heuristic. And then and when you use that as a heuristic, and then you ask, okay, who benefits from monkey wrenching our system? Yeah. Well, clearly a lot of people. But again, those who have controlled it in the past by controlling the price of dollars are going to have the most to lose. And this is part of the reason why I keep, screaming about, City of London or Davos or whatever you want to call it, because they're the ones with the most to lose. Therefore, they're the ones with the highest incentive to muck with this stuff. And then when you go and you look at credit spreads and you look at, the way you look at things like the tick report and all the things I talk about on a regular basis, you're like, oh, yeah, that's a coherent argument, Tom. It may not be 100% complete, that argument, but it's especially for the layman plus, it's making that's an argument that makes sense. Now, I put that argument out there, and I've yet to have anybody tell me to put together a coherent counter argument to that. That's the important part. When people just scream, okay, thank you, intelligence asset number 17. That's fine. What's your counter argument to that? Because at that point, you're acting like a gatekeeper because you don't have an argument. So give me an argument and prove me wrong, as opposed to just emotion, which is what most of the people chuckling collapsitarian are doing. Again, bringing this back full circle to what we talked about at the beginning of the situation. So then you have to ask yourself, then why would they want to hive us off into silos? Why would they want to do this? Why would they want to do that? Is it the same people? Yeah. Is it everybody acting in concert with one another? No, not necessarily. Again, trace the incentives. I'll give you the culprit. It's not that tough. Like modus means an opportunity. Yeah.
So starting next Wednesday, like we're entering a dense calendar from now until end of September in let's call it Federal Reserve world, right? You got the July meeting next week. We're gonna have Jackson Hole. There's no rate decision there, but it's marketing is what it is. It's public presentation. They Tommy, what they do, all the central bankers get together in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. They go through a bunch of research papers, but basically they have a topic to push. This is the new Federal Reserve Chair's first one, so it'll be a public relations event. There's going to be some messaging, qualitative that comes out of that, and then mid-September, you've got another interest rate meeting. All right, why does that matter? You've got this pressure in the bond markets, right? Yeah, like we talked about this. Like all these yields are just selling. Like we've seen the U.S. 2-year yield inch up. Some days it's a couple of basis points. Some days it's more like 5, 6, 8. A couple in there. It's been 8 days in a row. It's been rising, and you like just talk about the 10, talk about the 30. Like it's back to that boiling kettle that it's been that situation for the last 3 or 4 years. People are going to start talking, oh, we got the 30-year rate at 5.1%. That monster's rearing its head again. There's going to be, as those 3 key events I talked about, the default of the market is going to say, oh no, the market is saying the Fed funds futures, swaps market, they're all saying he needs to hike here. Why is he not doing it? That's going to be kind of like where I guess what you want to say, like the financial media, like are trying to shift the Overton window.
Yes.
But at this point, like why the hike doesn't make any sense. And I'll go into the actual mechanism, what's happening here. This will be helpful for the layman if I can bring you along. So what's going on when you hear the Fed funds rate? It's actually a market that it's not that widely used anymore. This isn't where banks tend to go for their marginal source of funding like they used to, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, et cetera, right? That little facility, we still cite it and reference it because, I don't know, just think of something that mattered to your dad or grandpa. But for all intents and purposes, like it's irrelevant in today's facts of life. Like, I don't know, the NBC nightly news. My grandpa
Right.
tuned into that every evening after he got done on with his work on the farm. And I remember watching him. And like now it's like, does anybody watch that anymore? I mean, they claim they do, but I don't know.
I vaguely remember being in like a car in Manhattan and my grandpa listening to Rush Limbaugh or something. I just remember
Yeah.
like, the EIB network. Ding. That's yeah, it's just shit. Yeah,
I bet Rush Limbaugh for when he was on the air mattered a whole lot more than NBC Nightly News.
probably.
Yeah,
It's just a vague memory of like
yeah.
going through Manhattan.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So what's going on here? You've got this legacy market that is, if it's not dead yet, but it's definitely not growing. Over 90% of the activity in the federal funds market is a deep rabbit hole, but we can try to make it simple. There's um, there's a group of banks and they're kind of congressionally authorized called the Federal Home Loan Banks. What are they? Like they're in locations like everybody knows about the Federal Reserve branches, New York, Boston, Richmond,
Atlanta.
Virginia, blah blah blah. These are in different markets than you used to. Like there's Des Moines. Like I can't remember exactly how many there are of them, but you've got these federal home loan banks. And basically what they are, they're the second to last lender of last resort, right? They're your backstop for they they don't just cover banks. They'll give fast cash advances, collateralized, loans, short term, like let's say year, 2 year, et cetera, for other types of financial institutions. This is what actually is the reveal to what's likely going on, in my opinion.
Mm.
90% of the activity in the federal funds market is these federal home loan banks. What these federal home loan banks are congressionally mandated to do is provide access to capital into the US mortgage industry or just get people in houses like through the financial system, all of that. So your mandate is actually pretty broad. And you don't just turn anybody away. Like if you're in the Federal Reserve System, like to access the federal funds facility, you have to be a member bank, like it's a gated community. They make it very narrow and tight who has access to that lender of last resort facility. Federal
Mm.
home loan banks, they have access to that Fed funds facility, but they actually open the door up to a much broader customer base because of that mandate. Hey, like our mission is to provide or facilitate capital availability, access, all that stuff, fairness, affordability into U.S. mortgage borrowing. All right. So what's actually happening there? I've said like it's 90% plus of the activity in Fed funds is actually the federal home loan banks. And then their customers, you look at it, it's like the cash advances, it's increasingly coming from life insurers. And then you look at it, it's like, why are life insurers coming to the second to last lender of last resort, right? This is where you get into the private credit story. So all of this liquidity tightness, all of that, all of the private credit, this is zero interest rate policy era, QE, all of this, Dodd-Frank pushed all of this middle market corporate lending. What does middle market mean? Think of your large companies like Apple or I don't know, Google, just like companies most everybody knows, they'll go access the public bond markets, but the businesses that are below the fold, you might have heard of some of them, but they're much smaller. They're not large enough to float a minimum scale bond, $300 million, right? It takes some real help to do that. Before Dodd-Frank, before 2008, most of that lending would go through the U.S. banking system, right? They learned to syndicate. They'd pull capital. Banks would fund loans. We would fund medium-sized business in the United States. Dodd-Frank really put a headwind on all of that activity, and it moved into these private lenders who were doing all sorts of crazy things. You know, I'll lose the audience here if I try to describe it, but it's all this offshore stuff running through Bermuda. You've got life insurance companies doing this. You got property and casualty insurance companies doing these originations. They fund themselves through yeah, craziness going on, Japanese yen, carry trades, all of that. Um, but this pressure we're actually seeing in the Fed funds rate telling, that's giving your Yahoo Finance and everybody over the next 6 weeks that's going to say, why is he not hiking? That I've been seeing articles this week saying, hey, there's a 70% chance to hike in September. What the actual impetus, like people are going to say it's like, no, he's got to address inflation will be the quick knee-jerk headline. Get on top of it. I thought you were going to be a hawk,
Right.
Mr. Kevin Warsh. It's actually the lack of liquidity, like the demand for fast cash advances of the life insurers, the private credit sector.
Right.
If you just look for the smoke, there's probably fire. Like I'm just
Right.
going off of trends we see. December 2025, or yeah, and Q1. We don't have data for what happened in the second quarter for the FHLB. The fast cash advances into
Mhm.
the life insurance industry, which is pretty well documented at this point. If you do the research, has a credit quality problem for the a lot of the private credit loan book that they've
Yep.
spun up over the last 10, 15 years. But that's basically the calling card, or the reason that the whatever, the Europeans, the mainstreamers, offshore dollar are going to tell Kevin Warsh, like, no, you need to hike here.
You need to hike, and they need to hike because they have such a need for dollars. They're willing to bid the price of dollars up higher. When there's stress in the system like that, they're going to bid the price of dollars up, right? So they're going to be willing to pay a higher deal to get those dollars. They're going to be willing to pay more to get dollars, and pay an interest carry on those dollars. That's what I mean. This is the part you have to bring it home to people that they understand. Like I have dollars and you need them, and you know, okay, I'm like, I don't want to give them up because I like them. I've got them invested here at, something. And they're like, you got to offer me more than that. So if you hike, then, you're just saying to the market, yeah, that's what the going rate for dollars is. It's an acknowledgement of the reality. And at the same time, they usually, when there's a credit stress event, when things get ugly, that's when they want to cut rates in order to increase liquidity flow. So they're trying to tell you to. They're trying to blackmail him into raising rates in order to alleviate their funding stress. Which it's not to alleviate their funding stress. They're stressed. They just want the market and the Fed to validate their stress, as opposed to actually not fixing the problem, but alleviating the problem by increasing dollar funding flow by lowering Fed funds. But lowering Fed funds at this point would be the one thing that they don't want you to do, because that would prove that, okay, well, then we have other problems here. It's a hideous. The more I listen to this, the more I'm like, oh Jesus, this is a really problem. This is a real big,
Yeah.
like, this is 2-3 levels deep of how do we massage people's perceptions about where we are.
So when you got a
Okay.
big knot, when your shoes are off, boots you haven't worn since last winter, and you're trying to get out the fucking leather knot, and you're like, Christ Almighty! And it takes 40 minutes, but then it's better than fucking sex when you finally untie it. You're like, oh,
And the worst thing to do, of course, at that point is to just cut the
the
laces, pull
easiest
them out,
way,
and the
but then you're
easiest
fucked.
way. Right. But that's the problem. So
The,
there's a lot to unpack here. Like what Matt and I both are trying to do. I know he's looking at it similarly to me. I think because he's closer to this market, because that's what he does for a living, as opposed to me, who LARPs like I do it for a living. Because I'm trying to like figure out the strategic play here. Is that someone needs us to prove that we're in trouble, in effect. That's the way I read it. Now, I may be wrong about that, and I'm happy to have pushback on that, but that's the way it reads to me. To validate their problem, which is their problem is, because again, at their problem, I'm talking about their being Davos, City of London, whatever you want to call it, they have to hike, or they feel like they have to hike because they have to attract capital. Like that's why they're raising rates. They're trying to attract capital to raise. They're trying to attract capital, so they raise rates to attract capital. But they can't. They can't actually attract capital because we refuse to raise rates, and or they're going to do that. They're going to raise. They're going to attract capital by doing it. But they want But the way that's perceived is, oh, you're trying to fight inflation. You have funding stress. If we prove that we don't have funding stress by keeping rates low, then they look weak because they're raising and we're not raising. So that's the other side of this as well. At least that's the way I'm reading it. I'm not sure if you agree with me on that, Matt. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. I'm because this is where we start getting into the weeds of who's out over their skis, and trying to figure that out. So go for it.
So the way the U.S. gets out of this, and the rest of the world, you have to figure out as they go as well. But the path out for the hike doesn't do anything here. It just, it actually, if you keep squeezing the dollar, it's going to make the rest of the world situation even worse.
Right.
Which if you get in, someone's playing, Heath Ledger as the Joker. Someone just, the incentives are, well, if you can't win the game, just,
burn everybody else down.
Yeah. As EM points, I think the most brilliant thing EM's ever pointed out is these people would rather be shot in the head than lose their wealth. Let me put it this way. From living with my parents 5 years, after my brother died, and I lived with my parents for 5 years, love my parents to death, but as a 25-year-old to 30-year-old, it's not the coolest life living at home. Now that I have the podcast that pays my rent, I'd rather get shot than go backwards. And I have a 1/1 trillionth of their worth. I think you're right. I think they're going, yeah, I'll light the world on fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we just crossed over a couple days ago the murder of the Romanov family. I don't know. I think it was already a certainty. He wasn't getting his wealth back.
Right.
I think he would have liked to live, preferably. Right. There's also another Russia-Ukraine conflict, similar situation. Like we just keep replaying the wheel. All right. No, my point, the way out of it for the US is actually to build and grow. Like just keep industrializing and then save. We got to build up rebuild our savings after, I brought this point up on when we got together another time on Tommy's podcast, but 2001, remember the prescription was go out and go shopping. It's like, no. The prescription in 2026 is go to work, collect your paycheck, save, whether it means, hard assets, gold, Bitcoin, you pick your favorite. But also this is where higher rates, like eventually that's probably where this is headed. Eventually you're going to have more savings into the financial system. And then on top of that, we had to get a financial system that is actually coherent for the 21st century.
That's what Tim Dillon says. He's like the tower. He's like the rubble is still smoldering. And Bush was like, you get out there, you go get yourself a bag, you go get a purse. That's how you fight terrorism.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
we thought it was dumb then. We thought it was dumb then, and it was, by the way. It's really fucking dumb now. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. No. The way to go is go tighten your belt buckle.
Yeah. Well, in a simple Austrian sense, it's we have to rebuild the pool of real savings.
Yeah.
And that it's just that simple. That real savings being, savings over and above, the cost of inflation or whatever it is. There's a pool of real wealth that it's the saved wealth from yesterday that we use to then say, okay, today is taken care of. Now we can invest in tomorrow. And you can't, a lot of these people are they're lent against the future in such a way that there is no savings, and the liquidation of all that debt would wipe them out. So what they want to do is they want to steal our savings in order to balance their books. And that's invariably it always boils down to that, some version of that. And everything else is just a knife fight over the existing stock of capital But to Matt's point, yes, the way we get out of that is to reindustrialize so that we can build a bigger pool of real savings on which our debt asset, our the stock of debt and all the other things that we can then that we have that's an overhang. The way you get around that, it's the same, no different than your personal household. You've got, you make $100,000 a year, and you got $1 million worth of debt. Okay, well, if you can hold that, if you can service that at 3%, well, if it goes to 4%, you can't. So you might want to pay the debt down before you go out and buy another car, and or whatever, put an addition on your house or whatever it is. The equity in your property is not the same as having the debt off of your balance sheet. It's not the same, because equity valuation is not the same as wealth. This is the problem with the whole Elizabeth Warren model of, well, they're trillionaires, we should tax their wealth. Well, no, it's not wealth. It's paper wealth. Elon Musk is not sitting around with $1 trillion in his bank account making 4%.
When I hear those people, I want to blow my fucking brains out. They're like, he has $1 trillion. It's like,
no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. Like, he lost 200 billion last night. Think about it.
No, he didn't.
Did he lose 200? He did. Shut the fuck up. God damn it. Sorry.
I know. It's seriously. And this is what these people are doing, is they're arguing that valuation is wealth when it's unrealized capital gains. And until they realize those capital gains, and then you have to think, okay, well, what's he going to do? Is he going to sell all that stock tomorrow? If he does, he crashes the value of the stock, and he doesn't realize $1 trillion. He realizes 150 billion.
Isn't his contract even staggered in a way that he has to 6 months ahead inform the SEC that
well, again, obviously, we're just making it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
When you go to, he can't sell his SpaceX stock or his Tesla stock or anything else. He would destroy his company in the process.
Yeah,
it would destroy the company.
Yeah,
and this is, I think, it's really important. Part of what Matt and I are trying to do here is just to. It's not even that we're putting forth even in a sense, even a coherent narrative, other than we have a lot of there's a huge gap in financial literacy between the way the world actually works and the way we're told it works. And 90% of what we're told is just warmed over Marxist envy and resentment. And that's why I think it was really important the other day. I mean, just to take this out of the financial weirdness. Think about what Marco Rubio said the other day about Cuba and the Marxism, that portion of his speech that he gave the other day. He's like, these people are just ugly. They want a world that's gray, flat, and terrible because, of their resentment that other people have something that you don't.
It's easier to bring everyone else down. Yeah.
Bring everybody else down, and we don't want that. We don't want a world without heroes and villains. We don't want a world without heroes and builders and this, that, and everything else. We don't want a world without imagination. We want a world with all of those things. And then, what Matt and I have been trying to, we get a little lost in the weeds because we both love this shit. We're really arguing for here. You're like, no, dude, no lie. I like this shit as much. I do. I like this stuff. So there was a great quote in one of our old issues of the newsletter where Dexter's like, Tom, I leave the talking about monetary policy and all this shit to Tom because he really likes it as opposed to me. Somehow he actually gets off on it. I can't. It's some version of that. It was really funny. I remember reading it when it was in his article. And I just laughed out loud. I'm like, yeah, guilty. But when you back out to what it actually means, it's because the reason that we care about this stuff is because this is how, if you figure out what they're doing and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and what you understand where the lay of the land is, and you can figure out a means by which to unfuck the world and unfuck these systems so that the average person doesn't have to worry about any of this stuff. They just know that they can, put their money in the bank, get 4%, and live their life. And that's,
I need you guys so someone like me can just go about.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there's a tremendous, and because there's such a gulf between the perception of how the world works and how the world actually works, that gulf is so massive that it's easy to write fake stories and write fake political narratives and shift the Overton window into what is literal nonsense. And for those of us who can see the nonsense, we just look at it and go, "Fuck, you talking about?"
It's a game of telephone, and you're just watching it go. And at the very end, and it's like after 30 people there, Tommy's podcast is about the cannibalism. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, like
right?
One day maybe, I don't know, but like not now.
I mean, in a sense, we are talking about cannibalism. This happens to be, financial cannibalism, which then leads to the actual, societal cannibalism.
Fuck me.
Like, and so we kind of, there's the problem with the. Yeah. I hate to tell you that may be the title of the podcast. Episode title. Not saying that we need to cut it off here or anything.
No. But it's Tommy's
opt out of financial cannibalism.
I was gonna say cannibalism cast, but yeah, it's
cannibalism cast. Don't go there. Go financial cannibalism. Is
okay,
better.
All right.
So, I don't know where we go from here, but other than to say that I think that Matt's right in that we have a compressed time schedule. These next 3, this is the time of the year. And this is also, by the way, we've now opened up we're now officially in election season, right? So now let's talk about where we are end of July. Everybody is telling you what their strategy is for how they're going to, quote unquote, win the midterms or what they're going to do after the midterms and whatnot. One of the things I noticed this morning was, and you can see it, is that after Trump's speech the other day about election fraud, the narrative that they're running with is that Trump is going to steal the midterms and we're going to have to oppose him on this. And so, they're already telling you that they almost in fact think they're going to lose. And therefore, they're telling you now what their response to that's going to be, which is that they're not going to accept this Congress, they're not going to accept the outcome of the election, and they're not going to accept Donald Trump continuing to be president. That's the scenario that they have begun to lay out. Watch Gavin Newsom, watch AOC, watch.
That was the full episode this morning with EM, Watkins, Blaine, Murray. That was the whole episode of we're going through the things. It's coming to a head, yeah.
Well,
yeah, no, that's clearly what they want to do.
I think the middle, 40% of the electorate, the public, whatever, you have to hold 2 ideas. Like the 2 extremes are coming at you.
Yeah.
One side is saying defend our democracy when like this, I live in Seattle and I see the storefronts holding that up and they mean a different thing.
Right.
Than the same act, defend our democracy.
Right.
So you're saying like, well, do you have to be a citizen to vote? Well, it's like, well, by definition, yes, that is what a citizen is, right? You would think. I mean, I read the autobiography of Ben Franklin, love that book, and he defines what the penultimate citizen is. But at some point, stakeholder in society, do you raise your hand? Are you a participant in that system? It's like, well, do you have to be that to vote? And like, that's where there's this just 2 different things. And are we going to argue over this in November all the way into January? Like, is that where this is going? Because like both sides are saying the same thing, but I guess just checking, ballot registries or voter rolls, all of that.
That's a huge one, and the easiest way to get to the people in the middle who aren't quite sure, they think, and they're not wrong. They think the far right and the far left are insane. Yeah, I would go with the one that's like maybe trying to put more money in your pocket.
Yeah, I would give you a path out, or the one who wants you to have a garage,
or just like a border where you can still have immigrants, but they just can't come in and rape your daughters, which is what happens. It's just, I was watching a video yesterday. This woman, her daughter was raped to paralyze, and she's like, "And this is my life now," and you're just like, that can't go on. So it's the 2 extremes. Yeah, one's like you can have a garage, and you got to have papers to come in.
Okay, how about the simple one? If you have it,
right.
I'll take not rape. What I'll make it really simple. Let's remind everybody what the calculus of voting is. For every person who gets to cast a vote who shouldn't be able to cast a vote, nullifies the vote of somebody who does have the right to vote. And that's a simple calculus, and there ain't no fungibility in that data. It's a simple +1 - -1.
Yeah.
It's a simple canceling. So the three guys sitting here right now,
Fuck you. You guys aren't citizens. You've never paid taxes. Your vote means nothing.
your vote.
You're
Yeah.
voided.
So here we are, guys in the middle class paying the majority of the taxes and paying working our asses off for all of these people to come in and execute waste, fraud, abuse, this, that, and everything else, all this stuff. And they have a right to cancel my vote. They have a right they have a right to cancel my citizenry. Really? You're going to defend that. You're going to defend that whole hog for what? Because you want to maintain power. Well, obviously, that's what you're trying to do. And obviously, that is going to lead to, well, bad outcomes for a lot of people. Now, this is where you have to then turn around and say, all right, who's doing that? Who's funding that? Where is that coming from? And what I like so far that I've seen paying down what Trump said the other night, and then since then has been headline after headline, interview, press conference after press conference from the entire administration, from everybody, from Brooke Rollins at Ag all the way up to Scott Besson at Treasury. Oh, by the way, here's how they're stealing your money. And they're using it.
Could you give me a quick update on what they've been saying the last couple of days? I
mean,
plugged from Twitter at times, so I just don't go
we,
insane.
We talked about some of it earlier, like Besson coming out and saying we found $100 million.
The fraud, yeah, I saw that.
Okay, we found this, we found this, we found this, we found that. All of that is right there in front of you. And now we're forcing the New Jersey governor to admit that it wasn't it wasn't just a clerical error, because now they had all these people on the voter rolls that they weren't supposed to, because the person she tried to throw under the bus saying it was a clerical error came out and said, no, it wasn't a clerical error. We told them this. And now she has to go, well, okay, yeah, there's a few thousand people on the voter rolls that aren't supposed to be there.
Are you talking about the New Jersey revelation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to see if anybody had any background on that. But yeah, 6,600 non-citizens registered to vote, and the claim or the response was, oh, it was a technical issue.
Right.
And then a New York Times article today, or I don't know if that's where it originated, but they said there were 400 non-citizens voting in New Jersey.
Well, it's even worse than that, but I think it was like the supervisor of elections, like the supervisor of elections for the state or whatever came out and said, no, it wasn't a clerical error. We told you that this was the problem. Oh, we told you that these people don't have, because I think they're matching them up against the birth death records and the voter rolls. And they're like, no, we told you that these people were dead. What are you talking about? It's not clerical error. We told you this, and you ignored us and left them on the voter rolls. Like it's the thing that's being done here is it's proving systemically, bit by bit, these people are just lying, and now they're having to get out in front of it. Now they're having to get out in front of this thing. Oh yeah, no, you're right. We're uncovering that, and so now you're making the governor of New Jersey admit to the fact that there's problems with the voter rolls.
So
that's a good start.
All right, reading chart patterns, how things develop.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's possible from here? Like, all right, we're already dripping this story in, and it's, one side bringing receipts against the other, saying like, yeah, the safest, most secure election in history, whatever. It's like, what about this? Election day is what? 120 days away. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah.
4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we even get to the point like where we bridge both ends here to agree that an actual election
I don't know. I think that's
that both sides agree to.
This is the big question. And again, like I think I said earlier, they want Trump to do the thing.
Yeah, I'll text it. You might. It's a long unit. The Colonel episodes are long. I would actually watch it. This is exactly what we talked about. Sorry, keep going.
No, I was going to say, but it's clear that they're trying to push Trump into forcing him to do a thing that is perceived to be extra constitutional in order to get this done. Declare a state of emergency, take control of the elections, put people on put ICE and or armed National Guard at the polling stations, blah 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 blah. And clearly, they're framed, and that's being framed as Trump is trying to steal the election. Trump is worried that he's going to lose because of the war in Iran and the oil prices and the this and all. He's going to throw everything at the wall to make as much stick as humanly possible. When the reality is, as always, spooks versus the military, the spooks lose unless they can get the people to neutralize the military. It's just that simple. So now let's talk about the purges that have been happening around the world.
Mhm.
Because Trump goes out and blames China for everything, but he doesn't blame Xi.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, like I said, I was talking with Susan Kokinda the other day on Crypto Rich's podcast, we talked about this extensively. Notice that before Trump came out and made that speech saying China has access to all their voter records, blaming China for all the insecurity, yada, 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 that was done after Xi went through that, after Trump visited Beijing and Xi has been purging the shit out of the CCP. So is he purging the people that Trump told him are the ones that have all the information and have been working to undermine and blame China for all this? Because remember, there are fifth columnists everywhere, folks. There aren't just fifth columnists in our government. There are fifth columnists in the Russian government. There are fifth columnists in the Chinese government. There are fifth columnists in the Indian government and the Iranian government. They're everywhere.
That's just as an input. That's why I always get so fucking angry when people are like, it's the Jews. I'm like, yes, it is. And it's the Americans. And I go, nefarious skullduggery, psychopathy, extraction, parasitical behavior is not the exclusive behavior of people in that small patch of land. We all do it. Blue eyes or brown skin. Hey, guess what? There's a bunch of motherfuckers that will stab you in the back.
Ready? Being a shitbag is not an ethnicity.
They're fucking. There's dog shit everywhere. Like just sorry.
So the answer to that question is I don't know. But you make the argument to the people that this is what you want. You want as secure an election as possible. And do you have enough faith in the Trump administration to do it right, or at least bet more right than what we've had? Because a lot of people still labor on, and that's a 40%. You have to make the case to that 40% of the electorate that our elections are not 0.5% insecure, 1% insecure, that they're 7, 10, 15, 20% insecure. And if that's the case, then yeah, I want to go back to 1. And if it means putting the National Guard, at voting stations around,
fucking do it.
Then do it, and take the Overton window hit. We've lived through Kent State, this country. We've lived through the fucking Civil War. We've lived through all sorts of shit. We can handle this.
Not even and on top of that, it's just like walk it out. Like, well, if we do that, we're going to be called fascists. If you don't do that, you're going to end up in a camp shot in the head because you didn't agree to chop your kid's dick off. You can call me whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Call me whatever you want. I'll welcome the National Guard in.
I welcome you calling me whatever you need to call me.
I don't care. In order, country. Yeah.
And by extension, the idea of self-governance. And
your freedom to call me whatever you want to call me. By the way,
that too. Yeah, well, that's what self-governance is, right? Like the whole. This has been my thing for a long time. These people want you to repudiate the idea of self-governance. They want you to believe it's not possible. They want you to believe that you can't govern yourself. And the American Constitution, the founding documents of America, and the ideas that America was founded upon, which is unique in the world, that needs to be repudiated so that we can go back to rule by, lack of a better term, philosopher kings that operate a plutocracy or oligarchy or whatever you want to call it. There's various versions thereof, and they all suck. But do you want the Politburo running things? Do you want President AOC?
Yeah. Or as Tim Dillon said, do you really think AOC is telling billionaires what to do? She's a puppet. Shut the fuck up. What did you tweet about, Tom? I just glanced at it when you said 60 days to war declaration or something.
Oh, the war powers. When he made a war powers declaration about the latest round of bombing. That means he's got 60 days under the War Powers Act to carry out this particular operation. Then he has to go to Congress and ask for more authorization. What that's telling me, of course, is that he knows he can wrap up Iran in 60 days worth of war operations, which is why he called for the ceasefire originally, which is why he signed the MOU, which is why he did all these things. People think he's losing over because they can't parse American law
Well,
because they don't know anything about American. And 90% of this commentary comes from people who aren't Americans and don't know anything about American law. And I'm like, please stop. Like, and it comes from people that I like and that I consider friends and everything else. I'm just like, stop. You don't know what you're talking about.
though this idea that it's going to be wrapped up in 60 days, or I hear a lot of, just sometimes in banter about the Russia-Ukraine situation, like, oh, Putin thought this was going to be wrapped up in 3 days. It's like, no. The idea that this stuff can be, resolved in days and weeks doesn't make any sense. And
You
that's
can do it. You can do a Venezuela hit, but that's entirely different. That's
yeah,
one guy in and out.
different situation.
Yeah.
It also took 4 to 5 months worth of negotiation with Maduro
True.
to get to that state.
Oh yeah, the aircraft carriers were out.
I was gonna say,
there.
I
The
forgot. And
buildup
then
was in August.
it took about
Yeah.
never mind. And it took about 9 weeks to put all that shit there. Never mind.
Oh, it was like August that the resources were getting piled up in
all right, so never mind. 1 point
Caribbean.
to Matt. Sorry.
Yeah. So no, but my point, like, all right, the thing is in motion. Like, all right, World War I, it's like, all right, Princip already shot the Archduke. Troops are moving into the border. Like, it's already started. My point here is the 60-day timeline. Like, cat's already out of the bag. Like, you cannot put we've already opened Pandora's box. The system is moving like in a direction. There's no putting Humpty Dumpty back together now that these things that, ultimately these were going to happen anyway, because we were in an unstable.
I'm gonna text both of you guys that episode. You don't have to watch it. It's like
Okay.
2 hours, but I mean, it's everything we talked about. More towards the end about going through all the lawful things, and the point being is like we're coming to the two glaciers are approaching, and it's like as you said, we're at a point where we're not turning away. How do we want to proceed?
Yeah.
And what I really liked about what Trump did the other night is he put the onus on the American people. What country do you want to live in? Yeah. I'm not here to relitigate what I think about 2020. Here's the facts. Here's the documents. Here's what we know. You decide. I'm leaving it to you. And that's dangerous, but it's certainly not the acts of a quote unquote dictator. Because if it was a dictator, he would have put everybody in jail.
He would have said
this
is the country you're living in.
Yeah, and then he would have and he would have had the pay-per-view cam or the body cams of them walking into the Senate and pulling Ossoff and Warnock out and putting them in jail because he knows that Georgia he knows that those elections were rigged, and he would have done that, but he didn't do that.
Some Delta Force guy made probably one of Dale's friends he wrote a couple paragraphs on Twitter a couple months ago. I can't remember for the life of me, but he goes, Trump's a dictator. He goes, you really want that? You really want? He goes, he's like, this is what it is. You're grabbed middle of the night. You don't know what's happening. No one knows what's happening. No cops are coming to get you. It's weird. The internet's down. The TV's down. Nothing's going on. Everyone that was saying something is now gone. You end up in a camp. You're asking what's going on. You're told to shut the fuck up. You're put in a cell. The only thing that's broadcast are pro-American things. That is the dictatorship. You are not in that. And it's the way he describes it so perfectly over like 3 paragraphs about just like, you're online and it's like, what happened to the Daily Show? It's like, well, no, Jon Stewart was executed. It's like that is what it is. And that's mild, but like,
No. I was just like,
no, but he goes, that's what it is. And that's what they want to frame him as. It's,
and he's not doing that. If anything, he's erring on the side of allowing the what's left of the institutional order
Don't
to work itself
destroy it.
out.
Yeah, let it. Don't destroy it. Try that. EM kept saying that today. He's like, you have to go through all the constitutional, the paths, and it's
And
yeah,
it's yeah, and it makes again, I publicly I've been angry with certain people, and Steve Murray's one of them. Like, just arrest somebody for God's sakes. Like, dude, fuck you. Like, are you kidding at this point? Like, do you want to live in that world? Great, Mr. Information Warrior. Like, I'm serious. Like, at some point, dude, you have to like control your emotions. This is why you're not president, and this is why you have no. I don't get it. I don't understand that mindset from people who are supposed to know better. I don't like
sure.
to throw people under the bus, but I have to when they act like fucking retards.
No, I got you. No, no, and I love Steve, but I get you. It's
Like, so do I, and it
yeah, no,
pisses me
I know,
off.
yeah, I know, and I know, and whenever you talk to him, not to get into a defense of him, but like, it always comes down to like like the pedophile shit. He just gets so angry about it. And he talks about his. I think it's from a good place, but I get what you're saying as well.
Oh,
Regardless,
of course.
yeah,
I know.
yeah,
Again, it's
yeah, yeah, no, I know.
there comes a point where you have to like. This is why. This is why you're not in charge.
Yeah,
And this is why
yeah,
you
and
have to be careful about how you frame this stuff for everybody. Everybody has to do it. We all have to do it. I have to do it.
yeah,
You think
no,
I'm not?
yeah,
You think I'm not as outrageous as the rest of these people? Of course I
yeah,
am.
yeah, I
But there
know.
comes a point where you're like, your morality does not matter here. What matters is what are your goals? It's goal-oriented behavior, and sometimes your goal-oriented behavior is you have to collect yourself. You have to keep your emotions in check. You have to not take the bait.
Yeah,
That
no,
sucks.
Speaking of arresting somebody, we didn't just arrest, here's a conviction, but Toronto Dominion Bank, aka TD Bank, a GSIB, the
Yep.
big banks essentially, the TBTF, they were caught red-handed, fined, etc. They're Canadian bank, for
Mhm.
background here, for money laundering, really.
How-
And they just had two mid-level bankers convicted. They're serving, I think it's like a 2 year and a 3 year prison term, which is like, all right,
It's
what's
nothing.
what's the
It's
term?
a
Like,
Fed. Yeah.
but point is like they're actually going to serve prison sentences.
I
Um,
tweeted out the how about I tweeted out the other day that no one noticed because it didn't get any airplay that we convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment and a $13 billion fine to the founder of the Sinaloa cartel.
that too.
wait, I say that again?
Yeah,
I didn't hear that.
no one heard it. You know why? Because they don't want you to know about it. Because
Yeah,
they'll just arrest somebody for God's sakes.
demoralization. Could you say it again for me? I actually didn't
Sure.
hear this.
The founder of the Sinaloa cartel was convicted, not arrested, convicted, life imprisonment, $13 billion fine. Give back all the money you stole. $13 billion.
It's huge.
Of course,
So
it's huge.
so this is a
Mexico,
this is
Mexico, Matt,
this yeah,
Mexico.
exactly. This is a dollar story. So
Yes,
someone pointed this out the other day, the trade with China, like 1800s, the two opium wars, all of that. What was actually going on? The Chinese, government, the business franchise, you had all the European traders. They wanted to go, mainly Londoners, right? The merchants, all that. They wanted the Chinese goods, but all China wanted was bullion, right? Because they said nothing you make is what we want. Well, we gave them all the silver we could until we ran out. Then what happened? Business stopped. We had to find another end around, and it was, newsflash, opium is what they wanted. Like massive quantities of opium. It's the same thing. Like what China went through in the 1800s with these people. Think about this. This is the fentanyl problem. This is the
Mhm.
opium problem. It's like, all right, you need to suck dollars out of America. Um, they stopped wanting to go deeper and deeper into debt under this monetary paradigm that we were, um, I guess, steered into at
Mhm.
Bretton Woods, and then all the updates it took. Um, but like we are just reliving the same story, right?
Yeah.
Like the Chinese didn't want anything you had. It's like, well, the society wanted opium. We got hit with that same thing too. So now
Yeah.
for this story, it's like, well, we're actually getting convictions here. TD Ameritrade, former bankers, cartel leaders, Sinaloa cartel, all that. It's like it's actually those are the steps you need. Like you can say fight the war, like everybody thinks about the kinetic war, but it's actually the other side of that. The flip side is like the financial arena. So both of those stories, like, yeah, everybody wants politicians arrested,
Yeah,
whoever, but those are big.
the
Yeah,
SF guys will tell you they're like the kinetic part is 1% of 1% of the thing.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agreed. This is the real thing is it's about the money, and it's about the flow of cash. And that's what, that's why when Trump signed the MOU with Iran, the first thing the IRGC did was try to rope Lebanon into the MOU, even though Lebanon was not part of the MOU, because Lebanon means Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is the main cash source for the IRGC. And so what did Trump do? Now Lebanon is a failed state. There's not really a government there. What did Trump do the other day? He had the nominal president, leader, political leader of Lebanon come to the White House, trying to figure out a way to put money back into Lebanon to get it to start building it up again to build up the civilian legal government, not Hezbollah, in Lebanon. That's how you stop. You want to put shackles around quote unquote Israel? Why do you think Israel is got such a hard on for dealing with freaking the Lebanese? It's not It's not the Lebanese. I mean, yes, are there Jews who hate Christians? Yes. Are there, sure, but whatever. That's not what this is about. This is about putting a shackle around the quote unquote Greater Israel Project, which is all crap. It's about bringing Lebanon back from the brink of being a failed state in the middle of this war zone so that we can build pipelines and get around the Strait of Hormuz and get everybody out of warfighting mode and get everybody out of hypervigilant mode about any Arab that looks at a Jew sideways or vice versa and all the rest of it. This is how you fix this. You fix this by giving people hope.
One of my regular guests, sorry, not regular, but 5, 10 times, Dr. George Nasser, he's in Lebanon. He did on WhatsApp. He texted me and some fucked up shit. He's like, "How are you doing, my friend?" And it's like a picture of like Hezbollah in the street, like, and you're like, "Fuck." I'm like, "Hey, can you do a show?" He's like,
guy.
He's like, "Yeah, oh yeah." He's like,
He's
"Yeah,
a friend of mine, yeah.
Okay. I'll be like, you want to do a show?" He's like, "Well, we don't have powder right now, but if I maybe go outside," I'm like, "Don't go outside. Don't fucking just go outside." I'm like, "We'll do it next week whenever you have powder."
I know.
Okay,
yeah, George and I are Twitter mates, and I've actually been meaning to formalize that arrangement. Anytime you want to do a show with me, me and George,
I'll make it.
That'd be
No, dude. George,
I didn't know you know George.
Yeah. I've had him on. I don't even know how the fuck I met him, but he's been coming on the show for like 5 years. Just
George is great because he just pings people. Like I can tell you, he just pings people behind the scenes. He's pretty good with me. So and he's been trying to keep me up to date as to what's going on. Sometimes I don't actually understand some of what he's talking about because it's a little bit. Lebanon is not an area of expertise, folks. Like it's just not. And I know
for me,
it's not,
either. Yeah, he texts me shit about a water project going on. Some I'm like you gotta George, you gotta break it down. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'll talk to him. I'll try to get something going.
Mm-hmm. So, and then it's just funny. I'm sitting here looking at a text that came through from a friend of mine. He's like, "Did you actually read Section 219 of the NDAA? What a big nothing burger." I'm like, "Yeah, it's exactly what Halsey and I described weeks ago. It's just nothing more than formalizing without money the exact same information sharing that we've been doing with Israel so that they can, do skunkworks beta testing in the real world against Russian and Chinese assets, military assets, without us having to pay for it. They just give us all the targeting data, and we go to Congress, and then the DoD goes to Congress and goes, "Yeah, we pay them a couple of $1 billion a year for this information. We get like $25 billion worth of value out of it." Like, sorry, I mean it's terrible, but it's true. It's not this merging of the two militaries. It's exactly the same information sharing that we've had forever. I'm like, I'm okay. This is to say, that's the fact. My opinion is I don't think we should be doing that, but that's a different story.
I was gonna say I'm not defending the military industrial complex,
Right.
and my problem is it's because it's so goddamn sexy. But like, I'm not defending it. But like, I mean, the AI, the system, the targeting system that Israel's been using I mean, it's called horrific shit in Gaza. It's called Lavender, and it's a subsidiary of Palantir. It's like
Right.
so it's not a new thing. And I'm with you. I'm not defending it.
Right.
I
You're not
would prefer
defending
if we weren't bombing kids. I'm just as it is. It's
but
not new.
but understand that it's being used as a gaslighting
Well, exactly.
technique
That's what I mean.
to further an existing gaslighting argument about how Israel controls everything, and it's just retarded. Please, let's stick to facts, not emotions. We can argue that we shouldn't be doing it in the first place, but it's not what everybody's saying it is.
Yeah, no. It's the whole like, well, we've just moved this much war material to the Philippines. Like what Trump's been doing, it's like we've been doing this exercise yearly since 1949. Like, what are you talking about? And it's they use it and they blow it up, and for that reason, and it's like we're not even debating whether or not we should be doing it. It's the idea of like, take the kids at the border, the kids in the cages. Happened under Obama, nobody gave a shit. Happened under Trump, everyone was crying. Continued under Obama or Biden,
nobody cared.
That's what I mean. And now, should kids be in cages? No, I'm with you. They shouldn't be. But at a certain point, you look at it and you're like, that's not what you're fucking doing. That's not you're not. You don't give a shit about that. That's a pawn, and it's
right.
I don't know.
And it's just funny. Like, and this story came up this morning because I woke up to my Twitter feed and Peter Spina, one of these fucking gold guys, not an American, by the way, friggin' Swede or whatever the hell he is, out there screaming, saying. Massey said something dumb about the NDA, about Section 219 of the NDAA, and he comes back and he says, Tom Luongo thinks this is winning. And I'm like, correction, I don't think any of this is winning, but this is what Section 219 actually said. Massey is wrong, blah, 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 blah. And by the way, if you want to react emotionally against facts, you're more than welcome to do so. But if you want to be that guy, you be that guy. But if you're not going to, but I want to deal with facts. And then how about we discuss whether or not that fact is something that we either like or don't like? That's fine, right? Don't conflate that with general DOD budgets and this, that, and everything else. It's not. It's actually, they're getting rid of the aid. We're just making it above board that, here, we're going to have a group in Congress that these guys report to. What information sharing we're getting from the Israelis on the work that they're doing for our military contractors. So now the civilian government actually knows exactly what's going on. And it's not just on a quarterly basis. We're actually making a separate office for them to oversight. Isn't that what our Congress is supposed to be doing? Doesn't that turn that whole goddamn story on its fucking head? Like, again, facts matter. Why don't we deal with facts and not just arrest somebody for God's sakes? Like, this is what we have to do. And again, this is part of what Matt and I were trying to do when it comes to the financial markets. Again, what's actually going on here? Who's trying to do, here's some facts. What is it? What do those facts mean? Right? Here's some facts about race. Here's some facts about money flows. Here's some facts about the weirdness in the Indian banking system that clearly no one should be, even remotely interested in, no one should be doing, and yet it's happening. Now the question is, why is it happening? Who's happening? Who's doing it? Why? Do we have an answer? Maybe we don't. But at least you're now informed that there's this weird story going on with a whole bunch of, Indian diaspora money flowing back to the gift city. Like, I don't know what it means. It could mean any number of things, but at least we're talking about it. And that's kind of what we're supposed to be doing, as opposed to just, indulging our endocrine systems. Endocrine cast.
Yes. Endocrine cannibalism. Yeah, it really
endocrine cannibalism.
It really is. It's an addiction of cortisol and anger. It really is.
It beats estrogen cast.
Yeah, no, but it really is. It's easier to, and I know it because I've experienced it. It's easier to just say fuck it, it's over. It is difficult to find the silver lining. There's a reason for that. It's difficult to go to the gym. It's difficult to fucking eat healthy. There's a reason. It's difficult. It is so much easier to go, that's fucked. Of course it is, but that's not how the underdog wins the Super Bowl. It's like
So, and Tommy, you brought up like the very first time I was on the podcast, right? Where was your head 5 years ago?
Exactly. Exactly. Just exactly. And it's and then when I went on your show and people email me about it all the time, the idea of like delusional optimism as a biological and evolutionary advantage. And I think the analogy we use is like when you're in the desert and you see a mirage of a lake, you go towards it and it's not there. You go, okay, great. So you hallucinated. It's like, yeah, but you keep going because you keep seeing mirages. At a certain point, you do kind of come across a town and you find water. The guy that goes, there's nothing around, fuck it all, you're dead. Now, the mirage might not make you live, but you have a better chance of living. And I truly believe that optimism to a, and when I say delusional, I mean that very lightly. I don't mean like I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna literally take my dick out there on this show and it's gonna make me $1 million. That's not, don't do that. The idea of okay, I'm kicked off YouTube. Okay, I'm on Rumble. Okay, how do we do this? Okay, well, I know if I just keep building this, and I know I have a following, and I'll rebuild a network, and okay, 5 years is a long time. Let's see what happens. We'll go through this and just keep pushing. And so many days of so many weeks and so many that literally thousands of episodes, I would do this, and at the end, and just go. I don't know how it's gonna work, but I bet there's an opening somewhere. And I would legitimately lie to myself. I would be fucking drunk, 60 pounds overweight, and I'd be like, I'm gonna fucking in a month I'm gonna be the best. And I wasn't. But you just keep doing it, keep working towards it, and eventually you do start to see the little shimmers, and you go, holy fuck. And you grab them and they start to get bigger and they start to become more real and you go, oh my God. And then when you see people going, it's not worth it. Your first reaction is anger. You're like, it's there. The water's there. Keep going. And it's just, I really do believe that to a degree, delusional optimism is an evolutionary advantage. And in a million years, it'll be a fucking common thing like the neocortex or something. I don't know where I was going with all that, but my point is like, I do think that to just stay optimistic. What is there to win in going, it's over, we're in the middle of the desert, it's done? But I'm not saying that the optimistic guy is going to win. But if someone is going to win, it's going to be him.
Well, he's the only one who can win.
Exactly. And he might not.
Yeah.
But the other guy, you will not, and it's pleasurable to a degree. You accept it's over. Fuck it. Fuck it. I'm done. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But get the fuck out of the way of the people who are trying to move forward. Just legitimately fuck off. So I don't know where the fuck I was going with that.
You went exactly where that's where my head is.
You and I have talked about that. I have to believe in an optimistic world.
Yeah.
You know who else says that? It's one guy. He makes a couple bucks. I think his name's Elon Musk. I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right.
Go.
I think he's worth a couple bucks. Yeah.
A little. That last I checked. Yeah, and he's only created some useless technology.
I don't know. He brought the kilogram to orbit cost down to something like 100, and electric cars when we're boring underground. He's putting things in people's heads, and he owns Twitter and free speech, and all that little stuff. But
yeah,
I bet.
I did a podcast yesterday with Sean Newman and Sean was on holiday with his family. With the camper trailer and the family going around and being able to go around North America to meet people in person that he's only talked with in Flatland on his Starlink.
Yeah. Man. It's just be optimistic and win, dude. Just like shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. That's really it. It's like and this is why I always like, and I don't know, I'm just derailing the podcast now, but like the reason why I never like bent the knee on YouTube when they're like, you have to stop talking about COVID is all I could imagine was Anthony Fauci having a logger next to me in high school. And I've always been like this built. I would put him in there and lock him in there like a goddamn, like the cask of Amontillado. I would lock, and that's how I looked at it. So they're like, he's trying to send, like, you're censored. I would just always I would imagine that Anthony Fauci was writing that email to me. And I'm like, dude, I would fucking throw you so hard into a toilet and like not think twice of it. And like,
Mhm.
and that's how I view people that are negative or black pillars is I'm just like, get the fuck out of the way. So
Yeah, please.
I don't
I
know.
mean, I'm okay with you. Like you be who you need to be, but please don't, don't ridicule those of us who are trying to find the mechanism by which we can get out of this.
And if you are helplessly black pilled, that's your free will. Don't infect others.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Just,
don't.
just, yeah, just, please. It would be nice.
Matt,
Can we?
All it
Matt,
takes, yeah, is just that attitude. Show up to work, build something, whatever it is, crank the wrench, hammer in the nails. That's the path out of
Edmund,
this.
Edmund Burke, right? What the only way for evil to succeed is for
for
good
good
men to
men to
sit.
do nothing.
Did nothing. Like it's
Who
not
was it?
hard.
Who was it? Owner of FedEx. They're down. He had no money left for fuel for the jets, so he took the remaining money, went to the casino and won 50x, came back, fueled the jets, and FedEx is what it is now.
Yeah, it's like my
Yeah.
favorite is still
Look
Jeff
up that
Bezos.
story.
No, no, yeah,
It's
he
like
did.
my favorite is Jeff Bezos with the started Amazon and had to buy the first book that he sold on Amazon
Yeah.
from Barnes and Noble and then
Yeah.
shipped it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That kind of thing. Same thing.
the coolest piece of folklore about FedEx, I know that one everybody likes it. It's, down to your last whatever
Right.
chip, and you gamble and you made it, and that was the defining moment of the company.
Hmm.
Um, as I've kind of listened to, read up on the history of the company, what actually got them like their whole business model to work, which was like global delivery, like put the expense or the high value dense stuff in planes and move it anywhere in the world overnight. Um, the problem was you once the planes land, you have to move everything, you have to organize, reshuffle everything, and you have like, I don't know, 6 hours, whatever it is between like sundown, sun up, plane better be out, right? And it turned out to be the thing that did it was that made it successful because they couldn't figure it out. Like they kept breaking it. They couldn't meet their overnight
Hmm.
goal, or their failure rate was way too high. Um, they switched how they pay people. They went from an hourly wage shift to you just pay the whole crew by the job. So there's like a bounty. It's like, all right,
Hmm.
guys, we had 100 767s land in Memphis, Tennessee. 100 767s need to take off tomorrow morning at whatever 5 a.m., whatever the time is, and all of the stuff needs to be moved around into the right plane. And the recipe was don't pay people by the hour because they waste
Right.
time, they waste resources. Pay them by the
By
job. So it's
by the
like
thing they
go
did.
get the job
Yeah.
done, and then
Yeah.
people are like, well, then it turns into
Fuck.
I'm
Yeah.
going to get paid for the
It's a video
job.
game. You're like,
And then
Right.
it's like, am I going to waste, I don't know, 3 extra hours? It's like, no, chop, chop.
fuck
Like,
no, yeah.
why is the coffee not ready? Get on. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. No, exactly. It's a sale in ways, in some ways it's a performance model, and that's kind of where we all are in some ways. It's where I know that's the way the financial services industry is structured. It's what Tommy and it's how our business is structured. If I don't show up with, what I consider or what my audience considers or, my patrons consider the very best content I can give them, then they're gonna go find somebody else. And it's not that hard. You're out
yeah,
there, doing the thing, no net,
Yeah.
you're on a live wire, on high wire, on a net. It's funny. And we I remember I've told the story about when I was at the nickel boron company when I first got there. It was we had a 30% first pass rate on the nickel boron, and my boss and I just stood there one day, and I'm there in the thing. I'm fully committed because I've got some stock options. I've got this, okay, I've got a performance-based contract. And and he just looked at me and said, you do realize that it would be cheaper for us to wrap the parts in $100 bill, not plate them, and send them back to the client. We would lose less money because with a 30% first pass yield, that's how bad it was. I'm like, so, Avis, he's looked at me and says, Avis, they say we try harder. Well, we're X company, we try again. And that was our company motto. And when he said that to me, I'm like, we have a lot of work to do. And then, now none of that worked out for me other than, from the story does not ends well with me turning 30% first pass yield into 99% first pass yield and doing it an order of magnitude better than the rest of the plating industry with a coating that was an order of magnitude harder to do. And yet it was still in service of a product that wasn't particularly great. So did I make a lot of money? No, I got my salary and my stock options, got crammed down to zero, and that was the end of it. But, you still go out there and do the thing because it's the thing to do, because you believed in the task that was in front of you, and you did it. And, you never thought that you could do it. And I was working at and it's like everything else. It's like, this is how, in this world, that's the world you have to have. We looked at that and said, is there a chance in hell that this is going to work? Not really. We're going to do it anyway because we're pot committed, and we might as well. Why wouldn't we? Because at some point, if you don't do it, like, you'll never find out whether you're never going to find out what you're capable of, and what, the organization is capable of. And so that's what you have to realize, that sometimes, and this is culture was bad, the money was being wasted left and right, blah 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 blah. Well, I got news for you. Like, the United States government is in this state right now as well, and it's trying to reform itself. And if you don't believe that, if you believe that it's just a griftocracy, to quote Mike Ferris, another guy I'm throwing under the bus tonight because I don't give a shit, then fine, great, have a good day, enjoy it, enjoy the easy money of getting money for being black pilled. We're going to be out here trying to find the right way to move forward, and the path through it. The real path forward is you stick to it, you work harder, you figure out the next thing, that you solve one problem, and then you solve the next one, and then you solve the next one, and then you solve the next one. It's that simple. Otherwise, have fun, enjoy, and enjoy eating off the corpse of the zombie of the world that you thought you lived in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll wrap it up, but I was going to say just two things. Is one thing, my logic has always been that I actually cannot lose, because if I don't win today, I'm just going to try again tomorrow. And the only way I lose is if I consciously say I'm finished. Now, if I die in the process, I didn't lose. I'm just not here anymore. My logic is I can't lose. I'm going to keep playing the Russian roulette. I can't lose. I just keep going. People are like, how does the podcast fail? And I always say clinical brain death. Well, there's no more blood and oxygen up here. Yeah, all right. But then I'm not here to feel the loss. And then, lastly, and it's the story I've told 100 trillion times, but being in perfect shape in college, 4.0, getting to med school, do the whole fucking shebang, whole life ahead of me, lose my older brother to suicide right after. And then I just plummet, addicted. I gained 70 pounds, addicted to benzos, drinking cough syrup, smoking weed, just doing everything. I fucking hate myself. I fucking hate everyone around me. I'm angry. I'm blaming everybody. I moved home at 26, lived with my parents from 26 to 31, and just went so far down to the point where I even started asking my parents, and I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast, like, I think I might need to be in an institution. I don't know if I can live by myself ever again. And my parents were like, well, we've thought about that. We legitimately talked about that. And I started the podcast, and it forced me to be like, I have to get good night's sleep if I'm going to talk to people. And then it was like, I should lose weight if I'm on camera every day. And I've pushed that for 7 years to where I felt like I was great. And then I went to the very bottom, and now I feel better than I ever have. I've lost all of the weight. I'm now my own boss, and I do this. And so I look at that as a microcosm of America, like the pinnacle, and then we lost it. And I go, you can only know your own personal experience. All right. So I go, it happened to me where I would do the podcast and I'd tell everyone, I'm like, I'm optimistic and I'm going to win. And then I would finish it and I'd be like, I just hope Biden sends the FBI and shoots me tonight. I did that for years. I just wouldn't say it on camera. And now I'm here. So my point is like, if I did it, I'm like, yeah, I think America can do it. So like, that's how I look at it. I am not expecting anything from America that I have not done myself. That's where I come to it, is like, yeah. So I don't know. Hail America.
It's a good place to end. Yeah. I think that's a good place to end. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah. As I say, it's never been easy. right?
No,
And we think about that as like,
no.
No.
oh, we miss the easy days, or now it's time to, what do you, is it belt tighten? But
As the great Clay Martin says, Special Forces veteran, he goes, America is a gain of function lab for the men bold enough to leave Europe. They came here and then they were hardened by killing fucking Indians and bears, and we
if
conquered it. It's a gain of function lab for Alpha.
if you actually go and read the biographies of great men in history. I mean, some of it, like we tell the Alexander the Great story. If you've all heard it, it's like, all right, he came from
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
dad who was the king, whatever, and he was just like the boy wonder, and it was just like upward ascent until down. But a lot of these great men of history, like Frederick the Great, you read it. There's like this delusion to them where they're actually, it feel like in their lived experience, it felt like their back was always against the wall. Like, oh, if I could just fight my way out of this, or get my way out of this
Hmm.
pickle. And it ends up in hindsight, 100 years later, they put the great after that leader's name just because like they didn't see it in real time, but in
Yeah.
actuality what they were doing it was more of like a up and to the right chart than
Than you've
anybody
ever.
could actually like experience it as.
Yeah,
I think Grant. I think in the American experience, Ulysses S. Grant was that guy.
Yeah.
that. And
I don't think there's a better story in that in there than that, because that
another,
guy only went broke and went hit rock bottom like 4 times. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, dude, fascinating story there. Was it
yeah.
Mark Twain?
Yeah.
Like he was, yeah, down to his whatever last penny, and knew that he was dying, but wanted to finish his memoirs, and all of the book publishers just lowballed him, and Mark Twain got wind of it and like gave him a fair deal. And
Yeah.
yeah, like what it amounted to was Grant's family was able to actually like live out of poverty because of Mark Twain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
And Grant sacrificing the last year of his life writing that memoir, which then
Yeah.
became a bestseller and blah 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 blah.
yeah.
Great story.
Teddy Roosevelt just climbing through the ranks, becoming police chief, and one day walking by the White House and going, "I wonder if I could do that." And then his wife and his daughter, no, his wife and his mother died on the same day, on Valentine's Day, and he was like, "Well, I'm never gonna go anywhere from this." And then he decided to just keep going and became fucking president. Another book I read, he gets slept on, Grover Cleveland. That motherfucker was just straight line, as you were saying, Matt. That they I guess it's not really a nickname, but they called him the granite ship. They're like a
Mhm.
ship full of granite, and the waves of politics and morality would hit it, and it did nothing. Grover was just like, I'm gonna do the right thing. And it's like, dude, those guys, yeah, they all, and he got locked in the law firm. He was a new guy. They locked him in there. They're leaving at night. They locked it. They locked Grover Cleveland in there. And he was like, motherfucker. He was like 16. And like, then he became president. So like, I think that's how I'm going. And everybody watching this is like, oh, this is just a circle jerk of optimism. Correct. Correct. You're goddamn right. It is. All right. It is. So violently optimistic. So yeah, maybe that's the title. Violently
Maybe
optimistic.
that'll work for me.
Yeah.
Either way, guys.
Or financial cannibalism. Gentlemen, Vince, fuck you. We'll get you next time. And
Don't say mean
no,
things to
no,
Vince.
no, no.
Vince is awesome.
He's a sleepy guy. We'll wrap it up and I'll put it up immediately. It's gonna take like 2 hours to upload. This is so long. But gentlemen, thank you both for your time. Thank you for walking me through finance and listening to me ramble on about things that are just completely inco. I know we're talking about finance and all of a sudden I'm bringing up cannibalism, but hey, welcome to the show. So, Matt, Tom, as always, gentlemen, thank you for your time, guys.